Ladies and gentlemen and NB friends, welcome to another episode of Talkōbon. It is the early morning. I didn't have enough time to make coffee this morning, so I made Coca-Cola in a glass, as the meme says. But today, we're talking about the nighttime. We're talking about night and what is the morning, but the end of the night. Not the end of the night where you usually would have it, you know. Most people would say, oh, it's 10 o'clock, it's the end of the night, time to go to bed. That's not the end of the night. The end of the night is the morning, is it not? And what we're talking about today is that theme, is the people that exist during the nighttime, much like the main character of Call of the Night. Call of the Night is today's subject. But before we talk about today's subject, let me talk about our sponsor. Hey y'all, I know there's something in this economy that you guys could need, and that is some free cash. Doesn't that sound great? Free cash sounds like a great idea. Freecash.com is a site you can sign up for and literally do things that you would probably normally do and get paid for it. Are you one of those people that sits down and takes surveys from BuzzFeed that tells you literally nothing about yourself, but you still click the questions anyway? What if they paid you to do that? That's right, you can get paid to do surveys on free cash. Are you a mobile gamer? You don't have to answer that question. If so, free cash will literally pay you to play games. It's incredibly easy. Once you reach a certain limit, you can cash out from multiple websites, including Nintendo, Xbox, PlayStation, Steam. You can also withdraw money for things like V-Bucks and Roblox dollars. I don't even know what those are actually called because I don't play that game. But most importantly for me, things like CSGO, League of Legends, and Valorant also have withdraw options. So you best believe I'm doing that to get some skins in Valo. And if you'd like to get started today, you can go to freecash.com/r/BaronJ. That's right, freecash.com/r/BaronJ. And get started earning money for the things you already do today. So, Call of the Night is written by Kotoyama. If you know Kotoyama, you know Kotoyama's name from doing Dagashi Kashi. And they have a very specific style that I like a lot. Character designs are very unique. They have, I love the way that they draw faces. There's something about the faces, there's something about the facial expressions. It's just, it's both cute and interesting and conveys a lot from just facial expressions alone, and that's just the faces. There's a lot of really great framing and stuff like that, but we'll get into the art later. First and foremost, let's talk about the plot. Now, usually this is where I would summarize the plot, but here I'm going to talk about some of the themes first and foremost, because this is a romantic comedy. I know I've been talking about shonen, and I literally brought this up with myself not but a minute ago, saying, oh man, I talked about 3 shonen in my first 3 episodes. I need to talk about something else. I have range. I have variety in my reading. I just like shonen a lot. Call of the Night talks about Koyamori, who suffers from insomnia and wanders around at night. He starts wandering around at night. And I used to do this back when I was in high school and college. I had this weird habit of whenever I was depressed or having a rough time, I would just stay up super late. I'm talking 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I would just go out my back door. And I lived close to my school at the time, so I would just wander out back, wander over to the high school and that area, and I would just like wander around because I had not no friends, but I had a very rough time in high school for a lot of reasons. And I just felt observed all the time, which is weird. So I would just go out and basically be unobserved. And it was a very cathartic experience for me. And that's not quite why Koyamori stops going to school and starts wandering at night. That's not why he does it. I just related to that sort of wanderlust that he had for it. So he goes out at night and he encounters a girl named Nazuna Nanakusa, who is this sort of like impish, pixie-like girl that is very forward in a lot of the way that she talks about stuff. But there is a connection there where he very quickly realizes that this girl is not normal, and he feels a separation from his classmates and stuff like that. It's sort of the same way that I felt when I was in high school. But he feels a separation from the normal world, and this girl, Nazuna, shows a sort of other side to the world that he doesn't see. She sort of reads him like a book and just says, hey, I know you're having trouble sleeping. I can help with that. And just says like, hey, come spend the night with me, and I promise that you will sleep well. And he goes with her. They go to this tiny little apartment with a bed on it, and she basically just says, let's get some sleep. And she lays down with him, and you think, is this weird? Is this gross? And she drinks his blood because she is a vampire. This is where it really starts. There is a very interesting dynamic between these two where it shows romance not as necessarily an infatuation, but shows it more as an interpersonal relationship, which I really like. I really like because as someone in a engaged relationship, it's very refreshing to see that as a relationship dynamic. The series is, for the most part, very episodic at the beginning, where it's just another night and they're going out and they're doing stuff. But as it goes on, there are arcs talking about, like, who is this girl? What is her deal? She is a vampire. How old is she? What is that? There's also other vampires that they meet. Obviously, you can't just get away with the one. There's also dealing with the eventual transformation. One of the main dynamics of the show, and you'll find out very quickly, it's not a spoiler, to become a vampire, which is what Ko wants to do desperately. You have to be drunken from by a vampire that you're in love with. And that is the main drive of the show, is that Ko wants to fall in love with this girl. And he realizes very quickly he doesn't know how to do that because he doesn't relate to other people very well, but finds that he relates very well to Nazuna. And that is something about the manga's dynamic, the interpersonal relationship that they have, that I really like. It doesn't define itself from the get-go as a typical romantic relationship. It's very refreshing in this day and age of romance manga, because the rest of them are all about like, oh my god, I fell in love with you at first sight and stuff like that. But let's talk about the characters. The characters themselves are very interesting, very well fleshed out. There is one very far down the line that you'll meet that has motivation that is very well defined from the get-go as soon as you meet her, and you're basically left wondering, well, why is that? Just a very interesting cast of characters along with the overarching plot, of which there is one. It does end up being quite episodic at times. That is, I guess, a complaint that I would have, is that in the beginning it seems like it's way too episodic, and then as the manga goes on, it does end up becoming a more overarching story. That can be something that can turn you off for some series. I know some people don't like that, but I'm okay with it. Let me pour myself another Coca-Cola because I am waking up. So, the art. Let's talk about the art. The art of Call of the Night, if you've ever seen Dagashi Kashi, you know sort of what you're getting into. A lot of expression, a lot of very unique facial expression, highly detailed environments, incredible attention to detail in terms of like anatomy. Like, not to get too weird about it, but you on page 2 of chapter 2, I'm looking at the first panel with both of them in it, and you can see Nazuna's collarbones really, really well defined. You immediately look to your right, you see Ko's fingers, and also just the shading and pose of the fingers are also very, very well defined. It has no reason to look as well as it does in these particular situations. They're just sitting down and talking, but you move immediately to the next page and it's another conversation that they're having, and the posing, like, Nazuna looks cute. The panel with Ko at the top, he looks very angular. It's sort of the stress that he is showing in this moment of I'm not undead or anything, am I? You can sort of see that in how angular his fingers are, the way his chin has sort of jutted to that point, and obviously he's got the little sweat drops because he's doing that. We go immediately to the next page, and you see his facial expression when they're talking about love, and both him there, and you go up one, and the pose that Nazna is in, it implies all of this stuff about the conversation that they're having. That is what you get from a lot of the art of this. It is very well drawn. It is very, very well done. But that's not even the best part of Call of the Night, which is the writing and the conversation. A lot of the dialogue and conversations in Call of the Night are very, very well thought out from a point of conversationalism. What I found most compelling about the relationship and the dynamic that Ko and Nazna have is they are very much talking like they are people. They're not in a manga. They're talking back and forth like they are people. And that is another thing you don't typically get from most romance manga. There's also a little bit of world building that they have in talking about how the vampires are made, what's going on with vampires in this. The backstories of a lot of the characters, that's something I need to talk about. Sometimes there are characters that will pop up, some of these other vampires that have very one-dimensional fronts, and you find out there's a lot more depth to why they are the way they are. Nazna is one of these. I won't spoil you because it is her backstory and it does come up later on, but she has a very different backstory to a lot of the other vampires that are here. It's very mysterious when they start talking about the other ones and they're like, well, how old is she? And then I think they say it pretty quickly, and it's just like you go, wait a second. Everyone else is like completely different. Why are you like this? And it just leads more and more into why the manga pulls you in closer to these characters. There's another vampire later on that has quite a compelling reason for why they are the way they are, and it just breaks you when you read it. And that whole arc, it's one of the more recent things that they've done in the manga, but it's quite good. Also, let's talk about the adaptation. There was an adaptation that happened back in 2022. This was about a year ago, and it flew completely under my radar. It shouldn't have, because it was my mortal enemy, Leiden Films. It's not that I hate Leiden Films, it's that they get a lot of my favorite IPs, and then they just absolutely don't do anything with them. Like, for example, the Berserk one. Everyone knows the Berserk one. That was Leiden Films. They did Terraformers, which is another manga I'll have to talk about at some point because I loved the show. I unironically really liked the show, and then they sort of did something with that. I guess they did Arslan okay, but yeah, Leiden Films, it's very hit or miss in terms of adaptation. I have not watched the Call of the Night anime, and that is mainly because I hadn't read the manga. I wanted to read the manga, so I did not. I'm going to end this by summarizing a lot of my thoughts about this manga. There are a lot of themes in Call of the Night that I relate a lot with. The high school inability to relate with people, and then finding solace in being alone in the night, and then finding out that once you find other people in that same circle, that's where your relationships with other people lie. That is a big theme that I like a lot. I like it a lot. There's not a lot of stuff that does stuff like that. Again, I really like the character dynamic, the relationship dynamic between the two main leads. It's very good. There is a sort of power dynamic that happens later on. There are fights and action in this as well, and they are also very, very well done. But all in all, I have to say, if you want something different, from your romance shonen, then definitely give Call of the Night a go, because it does a very good job at what it does, which is unlike anything else that's really out in its same genre. That's about all I have to say on this topic, so once again, please check out our sponsor, and thanks, y'all. Bye-bye.